And life is too short for all of it. And I really believe that, we can have a business that feels good, not just feels good, feels great and pays great and supports the life that we want to have that is exceptional.
Hello, love. Welcome to the Sacred Purpose Podcast, a place where we illuminate your innate wisdom and help you embody your soul's calling. I'm your host, Lisa Malia, midwife, breast cancer survivor, and mama of 3, turned nonprofit CEO and embodiment coach. We're each on a unique path to live our sacred purpose, but we don't need to walk it alone. Through the power of connection, feminine wisdom, and embodied leadership, we can elevate our lives, communities, and businesses. Each week, I'll bring you transformative stories, practices, and rituals to support you in trusting and following your intuition, creating space to live a life of sacred purpose with deeper clarity and unapologetic joy as we reimagine and envision a new way forward. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Today, I get to sit down with Rebecca Cafiero. We have a really intimate conversation about some of the most pivotal and transformative moments of her life. This conversation is deep, it is rich, it is heartwarming and heart-wrenching, and filled with wisdom and insight. Rebecca is one of the most brilliant, vital women that I know. She is smart and quick, and to hear from her and to learn from her experiences is a gift. I want you to dive into this episode and don't miss a word of it. You're going to be so glad you did. She's a woman I've worked with over the last year. She's really helped me catapult the work that I do. She has built this community of women that really, truly do support each other. And the way she's done that is such a testament to her staying true to her vision and embodying the work that she believes in, so much so that every woman in her community can do the same. It creates such a reality to what we all know and believe is possible as we grow and we transform and support the work that we do so that we can all have the impact that we desire in our lives and in our businesses. Rebecca dives deep into some of the moments where she's experienced grief, how she transformed and reclaimed her purpose, the way she lives her life, and the way she was able to transform what gives her validation and where she gets that sense of purpose from. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I would love to hear what resonates for you. Listen to it all the way through. It just gets better and better and better as the conversation goes. Rebecca Cafiero is an international Forbes business and PR strategist, TEDx speaker, and top-ranked podcast host, 2-time bestselling author and mother of 2. As a founder and CEO of The Pitch Club, a for-women by women company, she has worked with hundreds of female entrepreneurs to increase their credibility, visibility, and profitability in business. Her clients have been featured in countless publications from magazines, including Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, Entrepreneur Magazine, and Martha Stewart, to popular digital publications such as Authority Magazine, Birdie, Medium, and BuzzFeed. Her publishing house, Pitch Club Publishing, has co-created 19 female best-selling authors and counting. Podcast Camp, a podcast creation and launch program, has helped launch more than a dozen top-ranked new and noteworthy podcasts with hundreds of thousands of downloads. Prior to becoming an entrepreneur, she spent 13 years in corporate America leading sales and marketing teams. She is a frequent speaker on online business strategy, creating credibility and visibility, productivity, and personal optimization. As a sought-after media source, Rebecca's tips have been featured in NBC News, ABC News, Biz TV, and publications including Reader's Digest, Women's Health, US News, World Report, and more. She's passionate about educating and empowering female entrepreneurs to be seen, heard, and valued as the experts they are in their field. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome to the Sacred Purpose Podcast. I'm so excited and honored to have you here. And I just cannot wait for my friends, family, and all these listeners to get to know you and appreciate you and just love you and the magic and the work you do in this world as much as I do. So it feels like such a joy and a treat and an honor and a privilege to have you here.
I am humbled by the privilege. I'm already getting emotional because seeing you in your element, it's a beautiful sight to behold.
Thank you. So I just have to tell anybody who's tuning in now and doesn't already know this, Rebecca has been a guide and a mentor and a business strategist with me over the last year, helping me get clear on the vision I have for my business and how to actually put that into words, which has never been my gift. At least it's one of the things that I have allowed to stop me because I felt like I couldn't put into words the way that I felt or the work that I did. And Rebecca has been absolutely, I don't even have enough words, but just such a transformation working with her. So this is a treat for me because I'm so happy to be here, but also she's witnessed the whole messy, really, really messy process of what it took to get me here. So yeah, it's like coming back to your mom with a report card that says, look, I did it. I got the A+, I studied for the test.
Yeah, and I feel like the analogy I'm feeling right now is I've got to be the midwife to help birth your business and confidence. And right now I can't stop smiling. It's like, it's being born.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And you're speaking my language right now. See,
Absolutely.
that's exactly what you do. Oh my God. I am so happy to have you here. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and tell the world what it is that brought you here? And
oh my goodness, that's a long story. But my name's Rebecca. I am a mama of two. I have a almost 6-year-old little boy and a 2.5-year-old, very spicy, sassy little girl. They're both such gifts. And I grew up in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon, and it was a long, windy road to get to where I am now. And I know we're going to dive into that, but I just want to say I'm incredibly grateful for where I'm at. And for anyone listening, one, look at the gift in any place that you're at, be grateful for it, but also be unsatisfied that you can always create more, no matter where you're at. And if you're in pain right now, that there's a purpose to it. You just don't know it yet.
wow. I'm just letting that sink in. That's so powerful. What a beautiful way to begin. Because I think it's so easy, especially when you're in a pain, a feeling that either stuck or like you don't have options or you don't know what's next, to be able to look, even at someone like you and think like, wow, it just must have always been easy to be there. And, I've had those thoughts, even when I was deciding to work with you, I knew you had all the strategy that I needed and the tools that I needed. And I thought, I knew immediately I needed to work with you. I hadn't come across you before. I hadn't been following you for a while or anything. I saw you once and I was like, she needs to be part of my life. But getting to work with you and getting to know you better, this has not been an easy path for you. You have, like you said, this long story, but a history. You've got rich life experiences. You've navigated yourself through some very, very heart-wrenching and tricky situations. And when I learned more about you and I started to hear your story, I thought to myself, I don't know where you found the wisdom and the insight, often at such a young age, to get to where you got to, how you did it, and even just your guidance now. I mean, it so translates in the work that you do now, which is why I just love and adore you so much, and why I'm so happy I decided to start working with you, is because you are so intuitive in the way you guide. I mean, you have all the strategy, but you bring so much more to the table than that. And that's just where I just get lit up. And, that's that's where I jump in and go like, oh, tell me more. I want to know that. I want to know how you became and where you draw your wisdom and your insight from.
Well, I love the fact you use the word became, because I think becoming is a word that you and I both hold very dear, and being, right? And to start, I've been a person that has historically always leaned towards the do. Very well. I definitely have a type A part of my personality, and that's why I love that. Before you hit record, we did a grounding breath, and it just taking that moment to pause and slow down and be present is something that I have really struggled with in my life, and it's for the reasons that many of us are moving fast. Right? Is we're trying to prove our worth to other people or to ourselves with all of these external these external pieces of validation. And sometimes it's also because we don't want to sit with ourselves. Because if we had to be with ourselves in a room, it's like, could we? I will actually say I really love being by myself. As much as I'm a people person, I have always been very self-interested, and I hope that doesn't come across as selfish, but I just have always had a lot of curiosity and wonder for everything. And even in those times that were really hard, I mean, believe me, there's some things that I would go through again to get to where I'm at. But even in those times, I'm like, wow, like universe, God, whatever, is putting this in front of me. Like there must be a reason for this.
Right. There must be a reason for this somehow. And to have even that kind of insight, if there's nothing else to hang on to in a moment like that, you don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know when the light is going to come. And just to even have that little bit of faith, whatever it was, to get you through that moment. And I think that is something that people get stuck on when they are introspective, that it's not a selfish thing. When you said you've always been curious about, in their time with yourself and self-development, the way I see that is that when we're able to connect with self and understand ourselves, it actually is the catalyst for being able to connect with other people. If we can't connect with ourselves, we're really blocking ourselves from really just feeling the depth of connection with everything and everyone else around us. Absolutely. So I see it as a gift, absolutely not selfish in any way.
I think part of it is I've always been really, not just curious, I'd almost say obsessed, but that's not a healthy word, but with transformation. And I've been looking, at themes for my life, because I've done some very different things. I'm trained, educated as a journalist and still consider myself a writer. And then I was in sales in this very corporate world for years. And I've always loved, like, even as a kid, I loved like creating floor plans and loved houses, and have done probably 50 fix and flips. And then now in the space of like working with female entrepreneurs and business strategy, like, wow, it would be really easy to look from the outside and judge myself of, Rebecca, you've done so many different things, which is okay. But I look back and I'm like, I think I just love transformation. I love a good before and after. Right? I really do. And whatever that is, in a story, in a business, in a real estate, but I think there's no more fascinating transformation than the transformation that's capable of, or possible for us as human beings. And we're constantly evolving. There's no after. There's only before.
Yes. Transformation, evolving, another transformation, evolve. I love that. A before and after. That's beautiful. When you said that, it made me think of being a little kid and like looking at makeovers. I was obsessed with makeovers. Like, oh wow, the before and the after. Right. I hadn't really made that connection until now, though. But I get that part of it for sure. So, what, if you don't mind me asking or sharing, what comes to mind now when you think of one of those transformative points in your life? I think the transformation is usually a journey, but if you look at the pivotal moments. That really changed everything. So there's a lot of them. And sometimes those pivotal moments, the pivot actually doesn't start in the moment, or I should say it starts there, but that's not where it happens. And the one that I always come back to, because it's two parts, was when I was 25, or maybe I just turned 26. And like I said, I had a background in journalism, worked at a daily paper, loved it, thought I was going to go to law school because I realized journalism does not pay the bills. And growing up in a family that did not have a lot financially, financial security was really important. I was totally on my own my senior year of high school, and struggled my way through college, working like 4 jobs. And just really this idea, like not having to live month to month, was kind of, that was it. I mean, abundance. And you were devoted to making sure that happen. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so again, I love journalism, but I said, I can't keep having a bartending job that I have to work basically full-time bartending in order to support my full-time journalism job. And that was in Oregon, where cost of living is much less than California. But wow. I had accidentally got into sales, not accidentally, because everything is, for a reason, but I had gotten to real estate sales, and I never had a desire to be in sales. I, like most people, thought sales was about manipulation. And as a journalist, I wanted to tell a story. I wanted to take information and condense it and turn it into something that people could consume and understand. And I realized that really good sales is actually exactly that, but it's a two-way conversation versus a one-way presentation, which is what most writing is. And I got into sales. This was during the real estate boom. So
2003 in Las Vegas, which is a very interesting place to move at 23 years old. But
nothing like middle Oregon.
No, I mean, I went from Oregon, from like rural Oregon, Eugene, Oregon, which actually that was still a big city from where I came from. I lived in Summer in my dad's town of 3,300.
It's very small
farming, fishing community, to Eugene, which was, bigger, to LA, and then to Vegas. And so definitely, I don't want to say I had culture shock, because I think I was so open for it. I was like, this is just more everything. It's more people, more opportunity, more learning, more possibility, which I loved. And I always knew, I moved the day after my college graduation to LA. Like, I was ready for it. But I got this job in Vegas. And at the time, that was the hot spot of the real estate boom. And I was working for the number one company. I could already hear myself going more into my masculine as I talk about this. But I got a job there, and I can remember, here's a pivotal point. I can remember asking my boss, I hadn't started yet, but I asked him, I came to this event before we started, and I said, is it possible to make $100,000 a year? Because to me, that's only what you can make as an attorney or as a lawyer.
Right.
Or a lawyer or a doctor. And I'm like, I'm not that great at science. And I really wanted to be an attorney, but my parents didn't, they had low opinions of attorneys. And that was actually my plan, was to go to law school. And I remember that my boss, his name was James Bond, actually, Jim Bond, he said to me, if you make $100,000, you'll be fired, because that would be underperforming.
Oh, wow.
And I went, what? And I was really lucky or fortunate to be put at a young age into a environment where my money mindset that was very formed from the way that I grew up, all of the money doesn't grow on trees. Like, we did our Christmas or our school shopping at my cousin's garage sales the day before their garage sale. I'm really fortunate that at 22, 23 years old, I saw a totally different reality. So I didn't have, I had that belief. It wasn't that firmly entrenched.
Wow.
And I was able to
for you.
Yeah. I mean, because I saw the proof around me all the time.
Right.
So I went into sales, and again, I did really well at it, because to me, it was about optimization. And I think that's part of transformation, is what am I working with, and how can I improve it? And how can I make it better? And how can I make it more me? And so I did very, very well. And there was hard times in that, because here I am 23, 24 years old. And very quickly, I went to the number one salesperson, or number two in our division. And I can remember some of these veterans that were 50, 60 years old looking at this, fresh out of college kid, and like, what are you doing? And that was the funny thing, is often they'd say, well, what are you doing, with this accusing tone? Like, I was like trading sexual favors to the 55 and over, adults. Right. I was selling retirement.
You couldn't possibly just be really good at this.
Well, but you know what it was? I mean, yes, I think I was good because I was naturally connecting, but what it really was is I didn't know what I didn't know. And we had a great training program. I had no prior experience. I had no bad habits. And so I went into that job, and I really believe that every single person that walked through that door wanted to buy a home. I believed it. I was like, well, we're in the number one. I mean, I believed everything I'd been trained on. We're in the number one market. We're the number one builder. And these homes are amazing. And so I went in with that outlook. And because I energetically showed up and it was aligned, my buyers met me there. And I remember my first month in sales, there were 10 of us in our sales office, and I sold as much as the other 9 combined.
Oh, geez. Wow.
And that was not,
of course, that didn't go unnoticed. Yeah.
I was not a popular person that month, because there was an infinite amount, there was a finite amount of homes. But that taught me that when you are aligned with what you're doing and you really believe in it, that you absolutely can create things that other people don't think are possible. Because whatever you think is possible is what can be, right? And like I say all the time, you can't hit a target you can't see, but you're never going to earn more money than you believe is possible. It's not going to just accidentally happen. You have to energetically show up. And I'm sure you're also a fan of Abraham Hicks. Like, you have to show up in the vibration and the energy to create the reality. You can't wait for the reality to prove it to you.
Right. Right. Oh, I love that. Yeah. What a great mindset, though. And kind of like, as you said, you didn't know what you didn't know, but also you did have a belief that it was possible. You saw the evidence around you. You saw what you were taught. You brought your magic and your gifts to the space, and it came together. I can imagine why the other 9 might not have been so thrilled with that coming out of nowhere.
I was always about sharing. I've always been very collaborative.
You are.
I'm a competitive human being, but mostly with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I actually loved team sports. I grew up, playing competitive sports, and it's always like, how can we win together? And that it wasn't, a lot of people didn't understand that. They're like, why are you sharing what's working with you? I'm like, because we're not competing. We all have different clients.
I think that's the mindset too that I tune into the most, is that there isn't, it is limitless, and why not share? We are on the same team. We all want the same outcome here. So let's do it.
So the moment though that you'd asked about, so 25, 26, flash forward a few years, and I was doing really well. The market was still incredibly hot. And a friend of mine had gone to a life coach. Now this is like 2005. This is 10 years before life coaching really was mainstream, I would say. Mm-hmm. And she was talking about this life coach. And I remember it was 10 sessions for $600. Which, looking back, I'm like, wow, I would now coach her very differently.
Right. Yes.
But I said, I'll do this. I was making good money. And the very first session was in person. It was 2 hours. And she asked me a question. Actually, she did this really interesting thing. She took a photo of me before we started. A photo just with light, took a photo and didn't show it to me. I was like, okay. And then she asked me, tell me a little bit about kind of what you're doing and what you're working towards and what your future looks like. And I proceeded to launch into this diatribe that was basically like a forward projection on my LinkedIn. Like I was #1 salesperson, and I got this award, and I'm going to, I'm getting promoted, and then this and this and this and this, and I'll be running the company by 45, 50. Because the way I grew up, my dad left young, and I was always looking for external validation. I realize that now. I didn't necessarily even realize it then, but I used achievement as my way of getting validation. And so she sat there and she listened, and she just gave me a moment. And then she said, okay, so what do you actually want? Completely cracked me open. I just started bawling, and
I have chills listening to that, because that's, yeah.
I mean, I was 26. I was still so young. And
and here you go. You look like you have everything you want. Well, I wanted this. I did that. I created that.
Exactly. I looked really good on paper. And that's not where I was living though. You don't live your life on paper. So then I started talking about all these things that I love, that lit me up. Things like writing and photography and theater and dance, these very creative things that what I'm realizing right now is I'm saying it, the parallel with all these things I wanted to do growing up that I either did, but it was a low level, meaning like I grew up in a small town. I did theater. I did the things that were free or offered through the Boys and Girls Club or through the school. But my parents, partly financially and just partly because I didn't put it nicely. I don't think they saw a lot of natural talent, and they were about investing the things that they saw value in. So they'd pay for the pitching coach or the batting coach or those things in softball, but like dance or singing was not an area that I naturally shined, even though I loved it. So
right, I get that.
Yes. And they're like, go do the free stuff. That's fine. So out of this life coach session, I ended up building this binder, and I still have it. And it was like a passion binder. And I was about to get married at the time. And my ex, so that kind of tells the story, was very antisocial. So he watched a lot of TV, like 40 hours a week. So I'd leave my house in the morning at 5, work out of the gym at 5:30 to 6:30. I had about a 40-minute drive to work, get to work by 7. Before the sales office is ever open, I actually shower in our model home.
Oh, wow.
And with cold water, we never even had heat. And I was like, that's okay. It doesn't matter. I'd shower. I'd be sitting down to work at 7:30. I'd work until 6. And this was 6 days a week, sometimes 7. And then I would, on the way home, I'd go to a class, a photography class, a theater class, whatever it was. And I was infusing joy into my life. But what I realized, it did improve my life, but it was like putting these like amazing condiments, like truffle oil and all the stuff onto like a cardboard sandwich.
Right. It was, not really integrating into your life.
No. And I felt bad about not feeling grateful. And the other moment I remember is pulling up, and we were custom building this beautiful home that overlooked the strip. And here I'm 26 years old. I'm making, double, triple what my parents, who worked their rears off and are, business owners, making like double, triple what they're earning. I'm maximizing for my 401k and bought investment properties and, custom building this home and doing incredibly in my job. And I remember driving up to the house and going, all I want to do is literally run away from it all. And I had this thought, I'm like, I have enough right now. If I don't close on this home with a down payment, that I could travel for at least a year without running out of money. But the thing about sales is that there's always a backlog. So if I was to walk away, I would have walked away from about $250,000 to $300,000 of earned commission I would earn over the next 8 to 10 months. Oh, wow. So there was always a reason to stay.
Right.
That you could never get away from.
Right. No, you can't. It's always it's almost a trap to keep you there.
Exactly. Wow. So that was the moment that I knew, I don't think this is my thing, but shortly after the market crashed, and then it was like survival, triage, just trying to stay afloat. And during that time, my marriage was short-lived. We'd been together 5 years. It lasted about a year. And I realized I don't want to have kids with this person. And that was a really quick answer to, all right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was it. I said, I told myself, I don't think I want to have children. And then I went, I absolutely want to have children. I just don't want to have children with him. And obviously I wish I would have realized that before, but
wow.
It was a valuable.
You got there in time.
I got there.
So that's all that truly matters. It's easy when we look back and revisit some of those things. And so absolutely. Why didn't I know that sooner? Right.
Because I was a people pleaser still. And even when I realized it, I mean, I started realizing it 4 or 5 months before the wedding and having these dreams and nightmares. But I was too afraid to upset everyone. And so I was just like, well, I just justified it. And I mean, when you want to talk, especially after what you and I just experienced this last weekend with hypnobreathwork, about not trusting my intuition and being in my logical mind and talking myself out of what was actually the right thing for me.
Right. And not wanting to disappoint other people. I think that's a huge piece of it, of claiming what it is we want and feeling like we're going to disappoint so many people if we make it known what we really want.
Exactly.
And of course, with a future and a wedding and families and all that on the table, of course, it's a lot of people that have got their eyes on what's happening and feel emotionally invested in it in some way or the other. But it also speaks to what you talked to before about looking for that external validation that you were seeking. So in some ways, looking for that validation from them or whoever or whatever that you thought was coming to say, hey, you're on the right track, you're doing all the right things. But also what credit that you realize, hey, wait a minute, I do want children. This just not in this way. This isn't working for me. And I can't build the family that I see for myself here. And you shifted that. Like that's huge.
And I think that, and then there was one other relationship after that was, well, let's just say it served me and teach me a lot of lessons. And as I learned from my therapist, not all teachers are kind, but those lessons, what they really taught me is to shed the need to please others. And not that it doesn't occasionally pop up, but between, being on my own, my senior year of high school, and basically what it was is I realized to try to make my parents happy was completely out of alignment with what made me happy. My parents are wonderful people. And they I think it's important to fairly blame, which is what something I get from Tony Robbins is, did I have some hard times? Of course, like everybody does with their parents probably. But I also have to thank them for some of those things that I didn't really like them for in the time, because being financially on my own at 18 made me so incredibly independent, and it made me incredibly resourceful. And those are qualities that I'm like, how do I even impart these in my kids without putting them through the gauntlet I went through? But I'm so grateful for that now, because when times got really hard later, having that confidence and belief in my own ability to create my way out of a situation is something that I don't know where else I would have learned it. And so that divorce was probably, I'd say, the biggest final step to realizing when you try to make everyone else happy at your own expense, it is never a recipe for happiness for anyone. Mm-hmm. The only thing you can do is focus on your own happiness. And again, that doesn't mean that it's in a selfish way. That's going to put your own oxygen mask on first way. And you're more likely to attract the people who, by being around you in your energy, that's going to create happiness for them.
Yeah. I think that's so perfectly said, because it goes almost exactly to what I'm speaking to this week. And it's building that roadmap of times when you've either listened to or not listened to your inner knowing, and what was the feeling and the result that came with it, so that you can use those I call them little pinpoints in your roadmap, little anchor points that you can go back and revisit and draw that wisdom from. It's like, oh, I knew before I got married and in this relationship, that feeling that I was questioning, I know what that is now. And then you also know what it was like that knowing kind of kept knocking at your door until you were really ready to hear it and make some moves with it. And now you also have that even as another anchor point to revisit and go, oh yeah, now I know what that is. I can revisit that and build that self-trust muscle and have these 2 points that you can go back and visit and draw strength and wisdom and information from, and then use that going forward as guideposts on your roadmap to keep lighting your way and giving that confidence to keep giving it another try.
It was all beautiful information because I learned a lot. I mean, making so much money fast and then losing it all when the market crashed. Not like I always say losing, but I know where it went, right? But everything, all the smart things I had done, like my 401k and investing in land and having rental properties, especially being in Las Vegas, that just all kind of evaporated. And so what that showed me is I had worked. I mean, I have a great work ethic. I've never worked harder, I don't think, than that time. I mean, I didn't take a day off for an entire year. Like I worked every single day. And even on the times that I was not in the office, I was still working. And when I lost everything, the only thing I had was experience. So I'm like, well, if the experience didn't feel good, if it wasn't enjoyable, like, yes, I mean, I got real world LinkedIn experience, but if the actual living didn't feel good, then what was it for? Because the physical things can be gone at any time. And the next pivotal point is I was working then for, still in real estate, definitely not my dream job at this point. It was like, just stay employed when the market was crashing and jobs were hard to find. And I never had an issue. I always could create like a job. That was never a problem. I always had stability there. But I started dating this wonderful young man, and he was lovely after really 2 pretty bad relationships. And about 6 weeks into dating, he got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And you actually know his sister, Tala.
Yeah, I knew the story, but I did not connect the dots that she is his sister until very recently. And again, just chills now thinking about that. She's such a gift, and to know her story and how your story are intersected, with her brother playing such a role in both of your lives. Just think what a gift his life was, and also what a tragedy to lose someone like that.
Absolutely. It was. And I mean, he was a gift to the world, but also the experience was a gift. I think that's really hard to say when you lose someone that you love. I mean, there were definitely times like in that relationship, I was like, he is my person. And I don't know if it's because our relationship got serious he got sick and our relationship got serious. I already really there was already a lot of compatibility and fun, but we were still really early on. Yeah. And when you have someone that's literally been given a death sentence, it changes everything. Right. And so we grew very close, not just, obviously emotionally, but spiritually grew incredibly close. And he quit his job almost right away when he got his diagnosis. He was engineering, made great money. And I remember saying, what are you doing? Like, you could still work. And because even though I realized that what I was doing wasn't my zone of genius and wasn't where I wanted to be, still having that financial security, I was like, what? Like, why would you get but he had a death sentence. And now doesn't mean that it could have gone a different way, but he's like, I don't know how much time I have. I want to enjoy my life. Yeah. And he wanted to, meditate and go to the beach every day and do things that just felt good. And so for me as his partner, when I would leave my 13-hour days and like go see him, we'd play chess or we'd read or just whatever it was like the slow times. There was such a slowness to that time. And it was so beautiful because I had been going for a decade.
Yeah. Yeah. You hadn't hardly come up for air yet. And here's this man saying, hey, let's just take a minute here. And what a knowing within him to take that time, because his time was very limited. Mm-hmm. And thank goodness he was able to voice that and say like, no, this is about what I really want right now. Wow. What a message.
So he passed away. And I was so fortunate that, Tala is someone that was always my soul sister, his sister. And going through that experience together, I had a lot of survivor guilt. And I didn't even realize that. And actually, this is a story I don't even know. I've shared it maybe once or twice, but I had so much guilt because I felt like his family called me the AIC, angel in charge. I'm really good for advocating. I'm really good at gathering data, information and staying like cool in stressful situations. And so I was always the one that was like, literally like how much fluid has he had and just there. And I stayed at the hospital. Sometimes I didn't go home for a week. I would just go back and forth from the hospital to work. And when he passed, well, maybe a few months before, we really thought he was going to pull out of it. We really thought like he started doing really well. And I felt in my body, I felt like I was like, I'm believing that he's going to survive and I know we're going to beat this. And my belief fueled the healing.
Mm.
And then there was a point, and I think he realized it before we realized it, that he started to decline again. And he started to push people away. Oh. But being emotionally where I was, I couldn't see it for that. And so he actually, before he passed, he kind of pushed me to a point where I was like, I can't, like, I have to put a boundary down, and I like love you, but I can't be in this emotion as your girlfriend, but maybe we could just be friends. And that was really, really hard. Wow. And we still, kept our friendship. And I was at his house the day before he passed, and then I spoke at the funeral. But later I thought, this is family. Like, they always credited me with him lasting as long as he did, because they gave him like a 2-week prognosis when he got diagnosed, and he lived for almost another year. Wow. I think it was actually over a year. And I just felt like if I wouldn't have given up when it was so hard, if I would have insisted, if I could have pushed through it, I could have saved him. Oh, and so I just felt like his family probably, I don't want to say hates me, but like deep down, like they still love me, but I was like, they must be so disappointed. They must, blame me. And I just had so much guilt around it. And, kind of fast forward, I met my husband. Ironically, we connected over the fact that he also was a cancer survivor before we met. His was thyroid. So if you're going to get a cancer, not that you ever want cancer, but thyroid is the most treatable. He was wonderful, but I'd lost touch with Tala, and my husband and I had just gotten married, and he was like somewhere at spring break, and he called me. He was with some friends, and he's like, "You're not going to believe who I'm with." And I'm like, "What?" And he calls me and he puts Tala on the phone.
No.
So she'd only seen photos from our wedding from like following me on Facebook, and went up to him and was like, "Are you Rebecca?"
Oh my goodness.
And so we reconnected. We hadn't talked for probably 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. This is making me so emotional for like what the story. And
and then the craziest part is, so I just said, "Hey, I want to get together. Let's get together in person." And I invited her to this event I was going to. She lived in LA. I lived in NorCal. It was in Orange County. Michelle Demery, who you've seen, Miss Diamond Ring, and one other friend. And we went to this event, and it was just so wonderful to see Tala and just be around her. And she just is wonderful and loving and incredible. But she drove me to the airport to fly out. And I remember just she made an offhand comment to me about something like, "Oh, that's why Amir pushed you away." And I went, "What?" She's like, "Oh yeah. When he, like, you guys broke up, like he did that on purpose." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Rebecca, he knew he was dying, and he knew that you would never leave. So he pushed you away and forced you to make that decision so that you would be able to move on." And I could just remember, one, just knowing that like she knew that meant she didn't blame me. And also just the way, I literally felt like I just broke down into tears.
Weight.
Yeah, the weight lifted off me. I'm like, it's not my fault. He knew this was actually his choice. And there was so much healing in that, because I did blame myself. But on the other side of that experience, when my husband went through his second round of cancer, which was actually a fairly mild round, but that was the pivot point of where I finally said, I'm leaving my job, because I missed my husband's surgery, because I had a meeting that was lined up 2 months in advance where I was presenting to a big team, and his surgery got scheduled like 2 weeks in advance. Oh. And I didn't feel like I could go to my job and say I need the day off. It was actually my first day in a new position.
Wow.
And I just remember as I like drove to the hospital to see, my now husband, and I was just crying my eyes out. And I was like, I'm never going to be in this position again, where I feel like I have to make this choice. Yeah. So that year, it was 13 months later, I left my job. And when my husband went through cancer the third time, I was able to take an entire month off, because I worked for myself and be there in the hospital and be an advocate with a 10-month-old at home. I only had to like worry about getting childcare for my son.
Isn't that amazing that you were able to gift yourself that time finally?
Yes.
Like after all of that.
After all of that.
Because you hear people talk about survivor's guilt. And when you hear it, you think you don't quite get what that means. But the way you just told that story really solidified and really brought me into what that experience and what that guilt is about, how you really do think that you can maybe have a different outcome, or how responsible you felt for his well-being, and of course how much you loved him, and like all these things that play into why am I here, and why am I doing what I'm doing. And what a gift to be able to see Tala and have all of that just be taken away. There's a lot of that talk, in our community with breast cancer survivors, and how somebody can be, stage 4 or stage 1, and why am I only stage 1 when this person over here is suffering so much? And, of course, thyroid cancer is treatable, but that doesn't take away from the experience and the fear. And now you've got babies with this man, and, it's every experience is valid, and we learn so much from it. And when you were talking about, not being able to even take time off work, I so get what that is, when you just feel like you're in survival mode, like you don't know anything else but to work and pay bills and keep supporting yourself. Like that was a really, really important value you had, is that you never wanted to be financially unstable. And I so relate to that. I was in my story, I share that I had, I thought I was going to go into surgery on Thursday when I got diagnosed with breast cancer and be back at work on Monday. Like that's how out of touch with reality I was, because I can't stop working. I have bills to pay. So I'll make a long weekend out of it. I'll see you guys on Monday. I truly, truly believed that. And so I just totally get that mindset and that fear, and that, you don't see another way out of it until you see another way out of it. And just want to commend you for being able to create that space for you eventually, when the time came with your husband and your family, and you knew what you valued most, and how you used all that wisdom to create that space when it really mattered to you and your family. Not that it didn't matter before, but that you foresaw this time coming and was able to bring all that forward.
And I feel like it's almost like the time that I saw the real estate market crash. And I remember, going through that, having no idea of what it would be like, of how painful that was. And I remember seeing the people that had gone through something like that, right? Like financial devastation. They were so much better prepared for the next time. And same thing with cancer. I mean, that first experience was hard. And even with my husband, you want to talk about like everyone at different stages. My husband, I think he was stage 2 or 3, but he also felt like, well, I shouldn't go get help because people have it so much worse. Like he even himself justified that, even though like, yeah, but you've gone through it 3 times. That's right. There's still PTSD, even if you have a treatable type. But when the pandemic hits time, I just remember in March, when everything got really quiet, I remember thinking, and people were like, oh, it's 2 weeks. I remember thinking, this feels to me intuitively like it felt in 2006 and 2007, right before the crash. And if I could look back at what I know now, or I could go back and like, how do I prepare for this? And really what it is about is that it was about that pivot early on. And in real estate, we always said, when people are selling, or when people are yelling, like buy, 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 be selling. When people are crying, be buying. But the reality is when people are like, everybody is freaking out in life, that is the time to be calm and to be intentional. And not to get caught up in whatever it is, right? It doesn't health, politics, any of the things. That is the time to say, hold on, if I can separate myself from all of this noise, if I can give myself space and silence to get really clear, in that clarity, there's so much speed. And I use the analogy that it's like, if everybody is, pulling over to the side of the road because they're like, I don't know what's happening, I'm just going to pull over, I'm going to freeze. And you can pull back, you can go over into the fast lane because you are aligned. You can move so quickly. And I know it's a bit of a different thought, but I was just thinking about like my business now and how everything has changed so much, but also it's because all of these experiences that we just talked about, it's why I believe so much in what I say about taking care of the human being, breathing life into the business. Because I put my business first, and it affected my relationships and my health. Right. And I've seen how short life can be. And I've worked with clients that literally exhausted me, and bosses, and life is too short for all of it. And I really believe that, we can have a business that feels good, not just feels good, feels great, and pays great, and supports the life that we want to have that is exceptional.
Yeah. So that you can live it and be present for it. So beautiful, Rebecca. And what a beautiful way to close out our conversation. And yeah, I also know this isn't the end for us. We're going to have many more conversations, I'm sure. So grateful for your wisdom and shedding light on some of your experience for us, and to pull some of those nuggets out. And just such a pleasure to have you here and get to know you a little bit more about your story. I'm so grateful for you.
Oh, Lisa, right back at you. I'm beyond grateful that I jumped into that Facebook group one day, and that's how we connected. And it just shows like you just never know where magic can come from, and just to be open all the time, because I look just even in the women that, are part of like the pitch club and the inner circle, like I never could have planned for it. That being open to it is what created it.
Absolutely. And the way that we all connect with each other, it's not just that you have this community, it's like we all have each other, which is, again, just a testament to the space that you've created. And so for anybody listening to this, do you want to tell us where we can find you?
Yes, I'd love Instagram because it's pretty. So over at Rebecca Cafiero, that's REBECCACAF as in Frank, IERO, or my website is the same. And I also have a podcast of Becoming You, which I'm excited to have you on very soon and hearing your story.
Okay, I was just going to ask if you have anything new coming up you want to share with us, but the podcast, absolutely. Oh my gosh, can't wait to dive into that. And anything else we should know about that you want to share?
I think the biggest thing right now that's showing up for me in life is giving yourself permission to make a playlist. And when I say that, not just the actual playlist in Spotify, which you and I got to do this weekend in Hypno Breathwork, but making a list of the things in your life that feel like play.
Oh, okay. I like that.
And having this menu. And I look at, there's so often that we wait to reward ourselves until we've earned whatever it is, because we've done all the hard things. But really life is about actually the play. And the more that I think we can spend time in play and what lights us up, the more in alignment we are, the more present we are, and the more energy we actually have to give to all of those do things that are on our list.
Oh my goodness. I love that so much. I don't think I play very much. I have fun doing my work, but I don't know how often I actually just go play. Well, I think that's a beautiful message.
That's the plight of the purpose-driven entrepreneur, right? Is we're like, our work is so meaningful, and it's all of these things, but there's a difference between being grateful and an impact and loving what you do, and then playing and taking care of like that inner child and being in creativity that is not scheduled.
Okay, I'm going to take note on that. I'm going to give it a try. You all heard me say it.
Create that playlist.
I will do it. I do it. I love you, Rebecca. Thank you so much for being here. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
You as well.
I'm so happy to have you here with me. It's an honor to have you tuning in each week. I want you to know that no matter where you're at and no matter what transition you're facing, you are supported and loved. You are whole, and you are more than capable as you are in this moment. You always have been. If you're ready to lean into a life of purpose, clarity, and joy through sisterhood, ritual, and intention, join us in the Connected Circle. Consider us your soul squad of women navigating all the transitions of life together. To join now, head over to my website, lisamalia.co, and join the Connected Circle at the very top of the page. I'll see you there. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please share, subscribe, rate, and write a review. This helps the goddess of the algorithm guide other incredible people to find this show and supports the work we do here. It really does make a difference, and I would be so, so grateful. With all my love, have a beautiful day.